Hey everyone.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, fun times ahead, right? Right?
Fun times right now.
Yeah, I hear you clickety clacking away. What's going on over there?
What are you typing?
I'm just updating.
Sounds
like,
important.
I'm updating like
typing that with a purpose.
the YouTube thing. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Mind your own beeswax, Mike. No.
Sorry, I'm just making sure the boat runs smoothly.
Yeah, no. This is episode 84 of the Flat Out Fever podcast, and today we start with a very, very special podcast because we have a very, very special guest yet again.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's going to be really fun.
Nicholas Latifi.
So who that guy? Go.
Who dem? Who dem?
He's a race car driver, duh. He's from Toronto. Hometown.
Ooh,
Hometown
I like
warrior.
Yeah.
So I'll give you the quick 60-second rundown, I
Yeah.
guess. So relatively late for a race car driver, but amazing. 2009 to 12, doing some go-karting. 2012, moved up Italian Formula 3 racing. 2013, Toyota Racing Series, and with Carlin team, did some British F3 and the FIA Euro F3. Drove throughout the year. 2014 again, Euro F3, Carrera Cup, Formula Renault, GP2 a little bit, 1 or 2 races. 2015 Formula Renault 3.5, Carrera Cup again, and some more GP2 races. And 2016 became the first Canadian to run a full season with the Dams Racing team in GP2.
Ooh, nice.
Starting to really make a mark in the racing world. And now, testing driver for the Renault Formula 1 team.
Now this we actually were following him earlier, and when this announcement came out, we were very excited.
As Torontonians and Canadians and racing fans,
Absolutely, yes.
what better could you ask for?
Yeah. I think we have a one of the comments right now is that it's our stream may not be up to par right now. If you're listening, if you're watching live, don't worry, it should stabilize.
It will stabilize
soon.
Yeah, that's how the internet works. It'll be okay.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. So yeah, guys. So this is a guy from Toronto. He started his path to F1. Maybe he started it like later than a lot of other drivers, but I guess
12, 13 years old.
Which I mean, they're still he's still young enough. I think
I've driven go-karts
Van
like
Dorn-
4 times in my life. So.
Van Dorn also started right around the same age.
Yeah.
So anyway, so he's got a promising future ahead. He's right now 17th in the GP2 in the GP2 standings. He's had some great battles. He's had some great races. Getting into the points, I guess, in Malaysia and a couple other places. Anyway, he's a full-on racing driver, and he's doing test work for Renault right now.
Yeah.
Now there are currently only like small rumors about him going to Renault, but I don't think it's not quite his time just yet. The Renault seat is very contested.
Probably not this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those seats are, as far as the silly season goes,
Yeah.
the top of the talks, I guess, is Renault.
Yeah, in between Renault and Force India, they dominate the market.
Renault themselves have been talking a lot too, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they have.
But yeah, they're a new team, but it's you have to.
Yeah. So yeah, he's we'll be calling him up in just a few minutes.
Just a minute, yeah.
But yeah, he's a local guy from Toronto. He's, I guess, he's been living most of his time recently in Europe, as you do. One of the things that during his interview, if you find like some of his interviews, he does mention that right now in this day and age, you pretty much have to live in Europe if you want to have a credible F1 feeder series career. Back in the day, you had to But you could have lived, you could have participated in the minor series in the States or elsewhere in the world. But right now, the way that it works, you pretty much have to be in Europe and compete in Europe.
With the point system, the way it is.
Yeah. Well, and
you need a certain number of championship points in the feeder F1 series to get to F1, which is the ultimate goal of these drivers.
Well, but it's also been like that by design. No, sorry. It's not just being like that by design because of the point system. It's also happened that over the past 20, 30 years, the competitive level in Europe has risen way above anything that any of the rest of the world could throw. And back in the day, it used to be that there was Pan American racing, and I think it was like the Atlantic series or whatever, that racers in North America could compete on, and they weren't at the same level as like the top feeder series for F1 in Europe, but they were like just right out there. But not anymore. There
might be as many go-kart racing tracks in a few countries in Europe as all of North America, and there's like the Florida's has the winter series for North American kart racing, and there's a few tracks around North America, but the concentration and the number of people competing and kids that are interested, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it's definitely
you gotta go race in Europe a little bit.
But yeah, anyway, we managed to get him for a few minutes for you guys today and for us,
rather than rambling. Just give him a call.
We're really excited about this. So
should we give him a ring?
Let's talk to our local boy.
This is a Flat Out Fever podcast, by the way. I don't think we said that.
No, we haven't said
top.
that.
We did actually.
Oh yeah. Okay. Cool.
I made sure.
Alrighty.
Mike's on top of everything.
Nicholas Latifi.
Skype is amazing.
Isn't it brilliant?
It's awesome. It's the future.
It is. The future
Space
is now.
age.
Let's just hope it goes through.
Would you? This is hilarious. Would you like to leave a video message?
You like to leave him a message? It's like an answering machine.
All right, we'll just
we'll wait up for
we'll give it a minute.
My parents used to have an answering machine that had 2 miniature audio cassettes in it. One of them was the recording that says, "Oh, we're not home right now.
Yeah.
Please leave your name, message, and we'll call you back whenever we get home."
And then the other
and then the other one recorded, and it would be like, it made these crazy noises. It knew where all the messages were somehow. On cassette tapes.
On cassettes, on no less.
Like maybe message him and be like, "Yo."
So how fun was F1 at Betty's this weekend? One of the few live races that we were allowed to, or not allowed, but allowed, because bars can't serve alcohol or open before 11.
That's
Otherwise,
true.
We could have done a few more live ones this year, but yeah, one of the few live
events that
we could show this year.
Sorry.
Or watch. I only saw maybe
stream health things. 1 second.
Sorry guys, it seems like we're having some technical difficulties. Please.
Internet's being lame. But yeah, that was maybe the 3rd or 4th race that I've seen live the whole season. Montreal, we were there.
Oh yeah, we were there.
We were in person. This one, there were 1 or 2. I couldn't even tell you which one. 1 or 2 where I woke up at 3, 4, 5 in the morning and watched them.
Yeah.
And watched them again at Betty's. But
no, that was fun, and thank you for everybody that did show up to Betty's this weekend.
Fun.
We will be doing it obviously again for the Mexican Grand Prix. We do try to do these, especially when they go live on our time zone, just to give everybody an update.
I was telling a buddy of mine about it. Like you should show up. Come out. Like here's the time, here's the date. Come out. And he's like, oh, I don't know people there and stuff. But it's kind of like going to the movies. Like, I don't know everyone that shows up. You don't know all the people that show up. It's kind of like going to the movies, but like everyone really wants to see this movie. Mm-hmm. We're all there for the same reason. People start cheering when stuff happens. The room starts going crazy cheering. Yeah, it's fun.
How are
Like
we
a
doing, Mike?
mini stadium atmosphere, almost like a movie.
Sorry about that. Adobe Creative Cloud is like a really weird program that like it constantly clocks in.
Yeah.
And so I left it on that computer.
Oh, there we go. We're back in green.
Yeah, should
All
be
right.
good to go.
Other computers taking over the whole internet,
Yeah.
screwing around.
I'm try and call him again.
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
Tell that other computer to relax. Over there in the living room.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello, Nicholas Latifi.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Hey guys, how's everybody?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, thanks. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, perfect. Can you
Can
hear
hear
us?
Yeah, I hear you guys all.
Actually,
Awesome.
hang in there, Nicholas. I don't think the volume is like way up for this. I mean, I can hear him only faintly.
That might be your thing. You should be
Okay,
fine.
yeah, it could be fine. Okay. Nicholas, I am Javier,
Danny?
And I'm Mike.
and we are the hosts of the FOF084a podcast based in your hometown of Toronto. Thank you very, very much for giving us this opportunity to chat and making a break in what must be a very busy schedule.
Yeah, I have a bit of time off right now between my last race. So yeah, my pleasure to come on this podcast with you guys.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you very much.
So cool.
Yeah. So you
Thank
were
you very
just recently in Austin, Texas.
Yes.
How was
I
that?
There, yeah, so it was actually only the second Grand Prix I've been to when I've not been racing myself this year. Obviously, GP2 does half the races with Formula One.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was nice to have another opportunity. Obviously, the other Grand Prix I went to was Canada.
Canada.
So it was nice to have an opportunity just to be in the background, just kind of like learn and observe. Take part in all the let's say the pre-session briefings with the team. Kind of get to figure out how they let's say set the program, all the debriefings, see how the drivers interact with the engineers, and just work with the whole team, because really it's quite a bit different to any other junior Formula racing, just with the sheer volume of people that Formula One drivers have to work with.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see, and it's actually surprising how much you learn just from being in the background.
100%. Actually, I want to ask you about that. Mike, can you pull up that picture? I'm highlighting it right now on the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw you out on the track walk.
Yeah, so you were doing a track walk from with one of our favoriteest drivers in Formula One right now, Jolyon Palmer. How's J Pal going on right now? How is he? Is he a fun guy to talk to, or what? What's going on there?
Yeah, he's a really nice guy, actually. I've even before he was in Formula One, we're not, let's say, like close friends, but we've known each other for like I said, a few years. He also raced with the GP2 team that I'm currently with. He won the championship with them.
Yeah.
So I've seen on a few separate occasions. Yeah, he's a really nice guy. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. No, I really like him as a commentator. But here we're showing a picture. Mike, can he see? I don't know if you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this picture right now, it shows you just off to the right there, and I just something that you said right now, like really is something that I've been curious, because it must be one of the biggest shock factors, if anything, or like biggest cultural differences going from somewhere like GP2 or any of the junior Formula to F1, and all of a sudden you're surrounded by so many people and everybody's watching what you do, and you have to interact with so many more people than before. Was that crazy to even obviously you're there as part of one of these people that are effectively Jolyon Palmer's entourage in this picture, but how is that atmosphere, like from a driver's perspective? Like you have your communications person, your PR person there, that must get hectic.
Yeah, so obviously it's I guess if you're jumping straight into a race seat, let's say straight from a junior Formula, it can be a bit overwhelming with how many people. So actually, everyone wearing the yellow shirts except me are actually engineers on just Jolyon's car. So Kevin Magnussen, the other driver, has his own set of engineers as well, and then on top of that, there's all the mechanics. So in GP2 and in other junior formulas, Formula 3, Formula Renault 3.5, you mainly have two engineers that you work with. You have your race engineer and your performance engineer. In F1, you see how many more engineers there are, and they all have their own role. That's like their own job for a specific part of the car. So, you do have your main race engineer, which is who the driver is, let's say, in contact with the most, but everybody will constantly be coming through to ask certain things about the session, wanting your feedback. Throughout the session, they'll always be relaying information to the race engineer, which he'll then relay back to Julian, because when you're driving, you don't want 20 different people talking to you on the radio. You just want your one race engineer, and then so all of the information will get funneled through him.
Right. You don't want like a broken telephone.
It's a bit overwhelming, I guess. And this is one of the reasons why I think it's good that I'm able to experience this now while I'm not in, let's say, in the race seat. Obviously, my goal is to get to Formula One. That's what I'm working towards. But to experience this and at least be exposed to it while not having the pressure of being in the race seat, I think is something very good and beneficial.
Now, that guy all the way off to the right, who looks like fake Nico Rosberg, what's he doing? He looks like he's trying to block his face so you guys don't look at him.
The picture is not very clear, so if I can't see the face, but if I have to guess, I think that's Julian's friend and trainer.
Oh, okay. People with the black shirt are not officially part of the team, but they're part of the weekend crew.
Can you see it better now?
Yes. Thankfully, it's still team kit, which is good. just different color.
Cool.
I have one of those black too. I just chose not to wear it.
Renault is obviously right now a very interesting team because their position right now in the Formula One pack. Let's say somebody just got into F1 with absolutely no knowledge of motorsports before, and they look at where Renault is right now, and they're further down than what their potential is. Let's put it that way, because they are a manufacturer team. They make their own engines. They supply other teams with engines. So it's a team that, as far as anybody can tell, they're just sort of in a rebuilding phase because they just committed back to F1 for the long term this year, and then they've had to work out some kinks, and they're still clearly in that process. But it's a team that has a long future, which is why, honestly, when we found out that you signed with them as a test driver, we covered it here on the podcast, and we're very excited because we as you do, I'm sure, as well, can tell that Renault is going places, and and as a long-term bet, they do seem like quite a reasonable bet. Nico Hülkenberg just got signed with them. Do you is that the kind of environment that you saw at the team there while hanging out with them? That is everybody really just focusing on a long-term future, and really they're thinking ahead to not necessarily even next year, but in 2-3 years time, challenging for wins, challenging for a championship?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the goal. It was always going to be a transitional year for them this year. Obviously, they took over the Lotus team very late last year, and pretty much started from the exact same car that Lotus ended off last year, which wasn't the most competitive. So they started, let's say, from last year's car with not really any development. And for sure, in the first part of the year, they were bringing some developments, but for the most part, they switched quite early their focus to the 2017 car. Yeah. Obviously, in 2017. There's a very big rule change for the cars, and the wider tires, the wider wings are going to be much quicker, probably around 4 to 5 seconds a lap quicker, just off mechanical and aero performance, because the engines regulations are pretty much the same. So it was always going to be a transitional year, and for sure they're they're a team that's going to have great potential because, like you said, they are a full manufacturer team now. They've been making their engines for a while, and now obviously when you combine both the engine making and chassis making in house, for sure, for sure, it's a big advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess you're in Austin all weekend, checking out the city, seeing the sights, enjoying the weather. I was a bit confused on the TV because they kept saying how hot it was. It's really hot here. So many people wearing pants and jackets, and also,
sorry, the weather was a bit strange in the mornings. Well, in the mornings it was quite cold, and it was cold for me. I wanted to wear a jacket. And then, and I'm from Canada, so if I'm putting on a jacket, then I'm cold.
Everybody else is in trouble. Yeah,
and also.
yeah, and then in the middle of the day it would just warm up, right? So yeah, it was a bit strange, but it wasn't too hot actually. It wasn't too hot. Ideal conditions for driving.
About Austin itself, I saw your vlog that you posted of the your hotel was downtown, right?
Yep, downtown.
So I hear all these sayings like Austin is like the Toronto of America. It's America's Toronto. It's a similar culture, that kind of stuff. But looking out your window there in your video, I didn't really get that impression.
No, definitely, I agree with you. I'm not sure who said that, but I don't agree with them.
You know what I think it is? I think they're talking about like just the amount of the population that's composed entirely of hipsters.
Hipsters, yeah. Independent beers and barbecue. A lot of band spots, I guess.
That might be true. Yeah, honestly, I didn't get to. I didn't get to explore so much downtown. Like, for the most part, they were like full days at the track. Obviously, I kept staying downtown. Went to a few different restaurants to eat, most of which were steakhouses, because obviously in Texas, that's really the only thing you can go for, and you're sure you're gonna get good quality.
Yeah, you don't go to Texas to get a salad.
No. We're like, should we go for like a nice Italian? It's like, no, it's probably gonna be very average here. You're in Texas, you gotta eat steak.
For sure. You're supposed to spend all your time at the track, right?
Yeah, well,
that's what you're there for.
If GP2 had a race in the States, like, you would have otherwise been there driving yourself, obviously. But on the weekends when that does happen, and I don't know if everybody is familiar with this or not, but GP2 was basically a series that was designed from the get-go. After the fall of Formula 3000, Bernie Ecclestone basically got together with Flavio Briatore, and they said, we gotta like streamline a way to get into Formula 1, and they came up with the concept of GP2 and GP3 as the premier feeder series into F1, and that's why they also go together so well as a backup series during the events, mainly in Europe and sometimes in Middle East and Asia. But what is that like for you guys? Because you have in GP2 you have two races. You have the sprint race and the feature race, and that is all going on at the same time as the F1 cars are going around, and the whole circus is happening. Like, what's that environment like? Are you guys, when the F1 guys are around, like, are you guys kind of treated like, okay, like, here's the GP2 guys, here's the F1 guys, like, clean the podium real quick, like, hurry up with your GP2 podium ceremony, here's the F1 guys coming? How is that?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things that makes GP2 and GP3, let's say, attractive to drivers, that makes drivers want to race in those championships, is the fact that you're in the Formula 1 paddock. You're under like the microscope of all the Formula 1 teams, which is, and obviously the atmosphere of a Formula 1 race weekend, right? You're in the show. Well, we're the support race to the show, but you're still in the show. So yeah, it's you definitely feel sometimes that. Sometimes the organization will make it clear that you're not the show, and just like, for example, little things like if there's little delays and let's say certain sessions, or like there's rain delays for Formula 1, they'll really adjust the schedules, but like sometimes they could cancel one of our races on one day and put it the next day, or shorten a practice, depending on if there's too many. Like in Malaysia, for example, we had 15 minutes less to practice just because of the scheduling. I guess there was a bunch of other support races, which for me I didn't really like, because I mean we're going all the way to Malaysia. We already don't get a lot of track time in GP2, and they shortened the practice session by 15 minutes, and we even drove a day earlier. So for me, it's like, okay, we're going all this way, and you're taking practice away from us. But again, it's because Formula 1 is the show, rightly so. Yeah. So you definitely feel sometimes that you're there to support them. But yeah, the whole atmosphere, I have to say, it's compared to the other series I raced in, I spent 2 years in the FIA Formula 3 European Championship, and we obviously support many of the DTM races. And DTM is like the Formula 1 of let's say GT racing, sedan racing, which they get some races that can get just as many people there. So those weekends are cool as well. But Formula 1, you really feel that atmosphere and that vibe. And depending on which races you go to, obviously we get to race at Monaco. that's just completely over the top. Abu Dhabi at the end of the year, I've raced there before in GP2. That's a crazy one too. We get to do a night race, and pretty much any race where you're gonna get a bunch of fans. Silverstone, the stands were packed, and again, for us to race there in that environment, it definitely makes a bit of a difference, and it's something really cool to be a part of.
Something that I found like funny and cool at the same time, when it was the first time for everybody at Baku earlier this year.
Oh, that's I was just gonna say the exact same thing.
Yeah. So I found it funny that the F1 drivers were commenting over and over again how everybody was watching you guys, because you guys were basically the next best thing to F1. But the circuit was new to everybody, so everybody was watching like the kind of lines that you were taking. Like how was that? How was hitting a brand new Grade A certified FIA track before the F1 cars?
And separately, because I think it got lost over that weekend through the broadcast, and people are like, "Oh, Baku sucks," whatever. How was it being there? Like, how was the city, the food, the people, or whatever? Like, how's Baku?
Yeah, okay, so I'll answer that question first. Obviously, Baku, it's a city that you could tell it's like, the whole city is kind of being like modernized and like rebuilt. Like there were so many big buildings under construction. It was quite a nice city actually. Weather was obviously nice. It was hot. We were, at least where the track was, it was close to the water, so that was nice. So from that regard, I think it was quite okay. I think we're going to be going back there next year in the GP2, so I'm looking forward to that. Speaking about the track itself, so normally on a race weekend, F1 will always drive one session before we drive, so they're kind of like the track cleaners, let's say. Yeah. But most of the tracks are they're proper racing circuits, so for Formula One they probably would have swept them down already. Obviously, Baku's a street track, and it's a brand new street track, so. Obviously, us having to do the first session there for them, we were the track cleaners, the first ones to drive and experience the track. Obviously, it was quite special. I know I always enjoy driving street tracks. I love street tracks. It's some of my favorite tracks to drive. But obviously, when you're the first one, there's still like candy wrappers on the track, a lot of dust. It definitely makes it a bit more challenging, and especially when you're driving around and like rooster tails of dust are flicking off the car in front because it hasn't been properly swept. It definitely changes the game a bit. But the track itself, obviously it's get up to very high speeds, has the longest straight or the longest, let's say, area where you're flat out, because there are some corners in the straight, but you just take them flat out. And then to race, if you guys watch the GP2 races, and I think that those are the GP2 races that got kind of the most attention out of anyone this year, just because of the sheer carnage that happened.
Yeah. Oh, it was great to watch. Cars going like almost 2 stories high. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I didn't get to experience the first one because I got involved in a first corner accident. In the first corner of the first race, so I didn't get the unfortunate that, but I think only half the field finished that one.
Yeah, I was gonna say like I was like everybody got into an accident there.
Like literally, if you just kept your nose clean and didn't, even if you weren't fast, even if you were one of the slowest cars on track, you kept your nose clean, you were gonna finish in the points in that first race, because so many people like fast mistakes or got hit out it was just it was a bit of a laundry that race, and especially with the long straight, it was so difficult to pull away, especially with the DRS effect. And then we had all the shenanigans with the safety car restarts, which created really big accidents, and it was really actually quite dangerous, especially the second race that I was in. The front driver accelerating and then braking and then causing big pileups and stuff behind. That's on a street track. That's not something you really want to be a part of, especially when you have nowhere to go. So that was a bit scary. But I enjoyed let's say I didn't enjoy the end result because I didn't finish in the points in either race. But the experience was quite cool because I like racing on street tracks.
Nice. Yeah.
Cool. I got the final question, I guess, in the same vein. Is so Renault brought you to Canada to have the whole weekend experience there, but Canada for next season in F1 is one of the 2 races that's not fully confirmed yet.
Question mark, right?
Because of the facilities and all that. Like, so Are the facilities really that bad? Like you were in the pits, you probably walked through the paddock club and whatever.
Yeah, what's so bad about them?
What's so bad about it? I know they don't have a real medical facility, and there's one or two things that could be spruced up, but
or is
it
just
really
that
that bad?
Or is it just that the buildings are from the 70s and they like everything to be new?
Is Bernie just one of those just that snobby?
I think the main thing with Montreal compared to, let's say, the other F1 tracks is really just the space in the paddock. So like the garages are okay. Like, you know, once the teams organize all their, let's say, their specific equipment, you know, you put the camera in the Renault garage in Montreal, and you put the camera in the Renault garage at any other track. It's most likely going to look the same, with the exception of Monaco, that you're really limited on space.
Yeah.
But I think the main thing is the actual paddock behind, where there's really not a lot of room, and also like the space for the hospitalities. So like the hospitalities, the team hospitalities,
Right.
not paddock club and that stuff. The team hospitalities are the smallest out of any track in Montreal, just because there's literally like there's no space. Obviously, you have that waterway that runs just behind the paddock, and I'm
Right.
pretty sure they were supposed to expand the paddock into that waterway to create much more room. And, you know, from, let's say, from being able to experience other paddocks, for sure, I think it's something that they should address, making the paddock bigger. I don't see it as a reason to not go back there, because Montreal is one of the best Grand Prix on the calendar. I know many drivers love the track, and I know many drivers that's one of their favorite Grand Prix to go to, just because of the atmosphere there. You know, it's right downtown, which you don't get with a lot of tracks. A lot of tracks you got to drive, you know, an hour and a half, 2 hours into the middle of nowhere, and into the farmland, which you know, it's not. It sounds nice from the outside that you get to say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to go race in England," but you're not racing in London. You're racing in Silverstone, which is quite a bit in the middle of nowhere. So a lot of times it can sound much nicer than it actually is. But Montreal is one of those races where you're in the heart of the city, which is nice, and you get, you know, tons of passionate motor racing fans. I think it was like one of the only Grand Prix that I saw that on the Friday practice days that some of the grandstands were completely full.
Yeah.
So I hope the Grand Prix goes back there. I definitely don't want to see that removed, not just because I'm Canadian, but because I think it really is one of the best Grand Prix on the calendar.
It is.
Yeah.
Of course.
It's a lot of fun.
Actually, so you just mentioned something about DRS, and correct me if I'm wrong, but DRS only made it to GP2 this year, right?
No, last year.
Last year.
Last year, yes.
Were you there to like witness the change? Like how different was that? Like now driving with DRS versus not DRS?
So honestly, in terms of lap time, you know, the DRS will probably give you around maybe half a second advantage compared to non-DRS to DRS lap times. You know, obviously we only use it in the straights, so it's not something that you know, you really have to get used to. You're just approaching some corners with a bit of a higher top speed. The main thing that I feel has changed is the obviously it's made it easier to overtake. So for sure, you know, the racing aspect is a bit different in terms of strategy. But the one thing that I find it changes a bit in the way you have to manage the races, because obviously when you're within the second gap of the car in front, you have the DRS, and in GP2 the DRS is quite a big advantage. You know, all the engines are the same, so you don't have the difference between, like in F1, between the Ferrari, Mercedes, Renault, Honda engine, where sometimes you can see, you know, if the Honda gets the DRS, it's not going to make such a big difference to a Mercedes powered car, or you know, you see that sometimes in the Formula One races. So all our engines are the same, so it really has quite a big effect, because without it, it was, you know, quite difficult to overtake unless you know, someone's tires massively dropped off in performance. So the way you have to manage the races now is completely different, because it's so effective. Most likely, if you are quicker than the car in front, even a few tenths, most likely you will pass them. Where in the past, you have to be like a second quicker than the guy to even have a chance of passing, just because, you know, it's so difficult to pass with these kind of formula cars. So the way you manage the race right from the get-go is different, because you really have to push much more than you did in the past around the whole track. Because without the DRS, before, you were able to, you know, save your tires in, like, let's say, infield sections, and just make sure you get a good exit out of the corner that leads onto the straight. Now you can't do that, because if the guy's close onto that last corner onto the straight, even if you get a good exit, he's going to pass you down the straight because he has the benefit of DRS. So you have to push to try and maintain that gap the whole track. And the way you manage the tires now becomes much more difficult, because you're forced to push much more.
Yeah, no doubt. That's pretty interesting, and I guess that's why DRS, when it made it to F1, and it got some criticism, people accused it of, you know, being artificial. but the end result from from a viewer's point of view is that it has increased overtaking, so I can see.
Do you remember the first year though, when DRS first came to F1? The first year they were allowed to use it in qualifying anywhere on the track.
Yeah, that was
Cars
insane.
were
That was insane.
fishtailing all over the place, and drivers were almost in tears about how scary it was. But they had to do it to compete.
Yeah.
That was amazing. I say go back.
I remember like some tracks they would get flat out corners like without DRS, but then as soon as you put the DRS, they become a bit borderline. Yeah. And obviously, I got to experience, let's say, that kind of driving when I did the Formula Renault 3.5 because they have a DRS system as well. Not nearly as efficient and as effective as GP2 and the F1 because the way it actually, like, let's say, works is it doesn't flip the rear flap up. It just kind of closes the gap between the upper element and lower element, which, just speaking simply, it just stalls the wing. So it just stops working the wing as well as it should. So it wouldn't make as big a difference, but you definitely feel it. And in that series, too, we were allowed to use in practice qualifying the DRS wherever you wanted. So as soon as you were full throttle, wheel was straight, even if you're turning a bit still, you're putting the DRS on. Even some corners, like for example, in Spa, Eau Rouge, you're going flat out there with the DRS.
With the DRS.
Whoa, that's scary.
That sounds amazing.
And so, the first corner, you're flat out with the DRS, so it becomes a bit sketchy.
Yeah, I've tried it on the video game. It's terrifying.
Even just digital. Going back to Austin, and I guess your role at Renault as a test driver. I guess from an outside perspective, like we know that you guys do, I guess, some in-car testing. We saw that you went to somewhere in Belgium and whipped out one of the V8s. And I guess, actually, first, how loud are those things, man? They're awesome.
Yeah, no, they're amazing. It's obviously I haven't driven one of the hybrid cars, so the fact that the car I did drive was the V8 was quite nice. Obviously, specifically speaking about Spa, that's one of the reasons we brought that car was because we know that's what the fans like. Yeah. And the proper test days that I have done with the team, they've been in that car, so for sure it's something nice to drive, and it's more similar to the GP2 car because now the GP2 cars are louder than the Formula One cars.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, so on top of that kind of stuff and like maybe some simulator work, like what kind of just to give a glimpse to the fans, like what does it consist of, like the job of being a test driver? Like do you go to Enstone a lot?
Yeah. So yeah, the role is mainly to help with my development. So like I said, I haven't driven the actual current year car. Right. Because obviously you can't just test the car whenever you want. But the only if you want to do a test day in a car like I've done, you have to take a car that's 2 years older than the current year. So we chose to do the test days in the 2012 car. So technically I could be driving a 2014 car, which wasn't a great car for the Lotus. I have a lot of problems, but we chose to do it in the 2012 car. So I had done a few test days in that, so that was a big part of the role to help with my development, and also to give me more track time in parts, let's say in the season where there's big breaks in the GP2 calendar. Like for example, in between Monza and Malaysia, I did a test day in that, which was good because it was a month break with no driving, and that's not such a good thing, especially in GP2 when you're already limited and don't have a lot of track time. Besides that, I've spent some time at Enstone. Especially at the beginning of the year, I have another session coming up for some simulator, and that's just helping the team a bit with anything they want to test. Most of the time on the simulator, they'll be doing a lot of, let's say, correlation running, which basically they'll try something they'll have something they tried on the car in real life, whether it's a setup change or a new suspension system, what have you, and then they'll try it on the simulator, and they want to make sure they kind of get similar data, similar readings, because if you do that, then the correlation is good, and you have more confidence to test things on the simulator and know that it's what result it's going to have on the real car. So that's something quite important. And then also, like I did in Austin, like I did in Montreal, I've gotten to go to a few races, and it's just an opportunity for me to learn and be in the background and see how a Formula One team operates, what's expected of the drivers, how they interact with the engineers, and vice versa. Because again, it really is, I said it before, but it really is a completely different world to GP2. So again, all these things just to help, let's say, further my development is the main, let's say, thing that comes with my test driver role.
That's really exciting. I just wanted to say, it's really exciting for you, obviously, right? Because I feel like when people think of testing, it's like one of these things like, oh no, you're testing new equipment or like new specs for a car or something like that. But to me, like as someone who's new to Formula One and the whole world that it is, I think that's really exciting. Sorry.
Yeah, for sure, exciting, and yeah, it's a good opportunity for me. I know you said at the beginning of the podcast that it's a full manufacturer team, and it's a team that has a lot of racing pedigree and has a great history in the sport. So to be not only just with a Formula One team, but a Formula One team like Renault that has this history for sure is something quite special as well.
On that same line, like we always hear a lot of questions for drivers and stuff like, what's your physical regimen like? What are you eating at night? Like how far do you have to jog? How much weight can you lift? All that kind of stuff. But I want to know about the mental training. Like, do you do like the two-handed yo-yos? You practice juggling? Can you ride a unicycle? Do you do any like kind of balancing practice or like reaction times? How do you practice?
I don't know how to juggle. I've tried juggling many times. I don't know how to juggle. I don't know how to ride a unicycle. But there obviously is an aspect to the mental side of things. Okay, I would say the physical aspect is always something that's underrated, let's say, from fans and spectators. It is very physical to drive, especially
the cardio for sure.
Speaking about our cars, the GP2, we don't have power steering, which is the one thing that makes it, let's say, if anything, a little bit more difficult than Formula One. Obviously, our races aren't as long. We don't have as high G-forces, but we don't have power steering, so that's adds something quite difficult. But speaking about the mental side, for sure, I think one of the main reasons why you have to do some mental training as well, and this could be, mental exercises or like little like cognitive games that you could do, like computer games, or depending on where I used to train in the first half of the year in the Pyrenees Mountains. There was a trainer I was working with, and he had a center up there, and there was many tools we used. Some are secrets, so I can't mention. But many tools to train your focus over long periods of time, your concentration. Obviously, reaction is a big thing. There's many of those, let's say, reaction light systems where you're just hitting lights as quick as you can, and just trying to incorporate a bunch of different things. Multitasking, memory, while you're still taking part in let's say physical exercise and stressing yourself physically, because that's what racing is. You're exerting yourself physically because you're driving, but there's many other things you have to manage at the same time while not hindering your driving performance. And obviously that becomes more crucial in Formula One, especially when you see one of the steering wheels they have to work with comes with like a 300-page manual. When you see the steering wheel, that's one of the things that always intrigues most of the fans and spectators, especially when they get to see one up close. They're like, is that really the steering wheel? Like, this looks like a video game controller. So yeah, for sure it becomes much more important when you're in Formula One, but it already is very important now, and especially that, again, we can't drive as much as we like. That's the one, let's say, downside to motor racing, and especially motor racing at a very high level, is the one way you improve anything, whether it's a sport, a skill you want to do, is you practice, right? The only way you can improve something is if you practice it. This is the one sport where practice is limited and restricted, which is unfortunate. So because of that, it becomes that much more important to be mentally sharp and, do things that, even if it's not actual driving, can help you stay sharp and ready, that when you do jump back in the car, it's as close as you can to, let's say, not have ever been out of a car. Like, for example, I just went this morning. I went karting. I have a KZ shifter kart. I went karting this morning just to stay sharp here in Toronto. A bit cold. I went up to Innisville. So
nice, right on.
A bit cold, but it was. Again, I have a big break in between the schedule, so just something to try and keep the racing
sharp. If you didn't know,
sharp.
Centennial Park's got Toonie laps on Tuesdays. I'm sure you've been there before.
So you're back in town now. Is that so? I guess it must be hard for you, because to compete in Europe all the time, like, so you probably have like a base in Europe that you spend most of the actual year at, right?
Yeah, so I have a place in the UK in Battersea, so where they have the Formula E race. It's quite close to the center of London. Honestly, this year I haven't spent so much time there. Reason being is because the team I race for is based in France, in Le Mans, where they have the 24-hour race. So before each each race, I'm obviously spending time there. In the summertime,
Damn.
when it was the European F1 races, they were all crammed into a very short amount of time. So it was a lot of back and forth between races and the team shop.
Mm-hmm.
Where I was doing my training in the first half of the year was also in France in the Pyrenees Mountains. And when there is a really big break in the schedule, like there is now, I like to come home because I prefer to be on this side of the pond than over in Europe. So, and in the previous years, I did race for a British team, so that's one of the reasons why I had a place in the UK. But it still is my European base. But yeah, I definitely like to come home as much as possible.
So outside of family and all, and the other obvious stuff, like what's another thing that you miss about Canada when you're out there?
The main thing that when I come back to Canada is I just try and just try to live let's say more of I'm not going to say a normal life, but do things that let's say I can't really do when I'm over there. Like just getting together with friends, going out on the weekends if I'm not racing. Obviously, I still stick to a very rigorous training program, physical training program, and like I said, I do try and keep active with driving various things, whether it's some simulator driving, go-karting, things like that. One of the things I also miss too, thankfully, this sport is played in the winter, and that's when I'm home the most, is my basketball. I love my basketball. I love my NBA.
Nice.
I love going to the games. Unfortunately, this when the playoffs start is normally when the racing season starts and picks back up. So I always end up missing the most exciting part. Huge basketball fan. Love to go to as many games as possible.
Oh, so you must be excited because the Raps are actually doing so great.
Finally doing well.
Yeah. I'm not going to the season opener tomorrow, unfortunately, but I'm going to be at Friday's Cavs game, which I'm looking forward to. And unfortunately, I'm not here for the Golden State Warriors game. So again, just a sacrifice I got to do with my racing. I'm not going to be here, so missing that game.
Going back to the racing a little bit, something I've always wondered. You answered or you mentioned this like an answer or two back about the power steering. So if you could, like for the listeners or for myself, compare the power steering. You don't have any power steering in GP2. Formula One has power steering. So I've driven before like a Honda Civic with the power steering disconnected. And on the opposite end of the scale, like I've played like a video game steering wheel with no power steering. So where would you rank like a F1 car? Because you can see on video the F1 drivers get some kind of feedback through the wheel. Like there's some kind of force there, but is it close to zero? How heavy is the wheel, and how heavy is the GP2 wheel?
Okay, so speaking about a Formula One car, yeah, obviously there's the power steering, so it's electronically a bit assisted. You can, well, some teams at least, I know, they play around with that because you do want some resistance in the wheel. You don't want that. It's like, you could just like turn it with one finger and like blow on the wheel and it's going to turn, because obviously the main thing you lose with that is the feeling of the car, because, when you play, let's say, video games, if you just use a simulator, a simple, Logitech steering wheel or any kind of basic wheel you get to play PlayStation or iRacing, Xbox game, something like that. The main way you feel the car is the vibration through the steering wheel.
Right.
It's really the only way you can feel the car, and that obviously in real life too plays a big part in how you feel the car and how you react in correct snaps of oversteer and things like that. Obviously, we feel the car through our butts, through our that are like pretty much sitting on the floor of the car. So you feel like that too. But that's one of the things that you lose. Let's say it's a sensation that you lose when you go from a non-power steering to a power steering car is that, let's say, that feeling and knowing exactly when the car is going to snap. You do kind of feel it, but it takes a bit more time to get used to. And that's, for me, is one of the biggest differences in stepping from the GP2 to the F1 car. Now, with the GP2, obviously, we don't have the power steering. The wheel gets very, very heavy. So, I'm sure when you drove I think you said it was the Honda Civic without the power steering, I'm sure you were still able to turn the wheel, but I'm sure it was like very, very heavy, and it's not something comfortable to drive with.
When you pull into a parking spot, it's pretty heavy. It's like 15 pounds. And like a really good, one of the really good Logitech wheels will give you 8 or 9 pounds. So how do you compare a GP2 wheel to that?
So it would be much, much heavier. So in terms of actual weight, I probably wouldn't be able to give you an example. But the one thing is, the weight of the wheel will obviously change depending on the kind of corner you're going through. Because in a slow speed corner, you have no aerodynamic load on the car So the wheel is still heavy, but it's, let's say, as light as it's going to get. Whereas when you go through a high-speed corner, when the aerodynamics of the car are making thousands of pounds of downforce that are pressing the car into the ground, the tires are getting forced into the ground, and you're having to turn that. So in the faster corner you go through, the much heavier the wheel gets. Especially if you add elevation change, let's say, like Eau Rouge, when you hit the compression in Spa and you're going up the hill, it's a flat-out corner, very, very steep uphill. The wheel is probably the heaviest there out of any other track that we drive. And, over an hour-long race, it becomes quite challenging.
Sounds amazing. You're giving me goosebumps. Awesome.
Oh, anyway, man. All of a sudden I just looked and we've taken up a lot of your time, and thanks for staying with us. I know that when we talked, when we talked to your guys, I guess we really only committed to half an hour, but it's been past that. I guess one thing that I did want to ask you is, now looking forward to the rest of the year, you have one more race coming up. And like you mentioned before, that's going to be it's both seasons, the F1 season and the GP2 season are going to end up at the same time. We're pretty much heading towards one of the most contested championships in Formula One. It might not get decided till then. You're going to be there. It's going to be a great party, but you're also going to have to show something because it's going to be the last race. Are you excited? What are your thoughts going into that race? Like, what are you looking forward to?
So yeah, obviously I'm very much looking forward to the last race. It's at a track that I really like, and it's one of the best Grand Prix, let's say, in terms of the atmosphere you get to as well. We get to race at night there, which also adds a different element to it. But yeah, definitely looking forward to the end of the season. For sure it's been, let's say, the season didn't go the way I expected. I'd be lying if I said I was happy with the way it gone. I definitely had some higher expectations. But I think the main thing with the last race of any championship really is you always want to end on a high, because then obviously you go into a long winter break, and most likely our first race won't be until middle of April next year. So that's a long break, especially if you end on let's say a sour note. So definitely want to keep, let's say, making steps forward in my learning and development, because in GP2 you learn something new every race. You're constantly getting more experience, so really looking forward to that. In terms of the F1, yeah, like you said, I agree. I really think the championship is going to go down to the last race. I hope it does.
I hope so.
Yeah. Oh man.
You don't like to see the championship get decided a few races before the end, because then it kind of takes away a bit of the excitement in the closing races. Sure. I'm hoping for that, and in that regard, I'm, let's say, just as much a motor racing fan, and just I want the same thing as any other normal spectator, because I'm not racing. I want an exciting battle down to the end. I want to be on the edge of my seat too, being like, oh my god, like who's gonna win this? And then obviously it's something that always when I see, let's say, the champion crowned at the end of the year, or maybe it's not at the end of the year, maybe it's during a race, it's something that, gives me more motivation, because obviously that's what I'm working towards. That's what my dream is, and that's what I've dedicated a good chunk of my life to. So that's also something I'm looking forward to see the celebrations.
Cool. Actually, quick question. So when you're at racing at the same time that F1 is racing, and then whatever you get, you finish your race and you go somewhere. Like what do you do? Like, where do you hang out to actually watch the F1 races? Like with your badge as a competitor, like do they give you pretty much the same access as anybody else? Can you just pretty much go anywhere and watch the race?
No. So actually, with our let's say GP2 passes, our paddock passes are different. It's not the same paddock as the Formula One, so it's different areas. So actually, we can't. Our passes don't allow us to go in the grandstands and anything, because that's a separate ticket, like a normal spectator would buy. Yeah. So actually, a lot of times it happens where if we want to watch the race and we just have our GP2 paddock pass, you're at the track, but you're literally just watching the race on TV in the GP2 hospitality. Oh yeah. So more often, and I've done it before. And it's not such a good thing, let's say, to admit this or say this, but sometimes the races are better to watch on TV, because you hear the commentator and you see everything, right? So as nice as it is to actually see the cars going around, especially if if it's your first Formula One race. I've seen the cars going around many times. And in all honesty, as a fan, sometimes I prefer to watch it on TV, because you get to see more the whole race and understand what's going on. So a lot of times, if I'm not flying out of the race Sunday night, which I won't be in Abu Dhabi, I'm probably going to go back to my hotel and watch the race on the TV there.
That's sweet.
I was just
My
gonna.
hotel is going to be right across from the tracks, like a 2-minute walk. So it's not like I'm just saying, okay, I'm done with my day. I don't care about Formula One. Let's go. I'm still going to be able to hear the cars.
Yeah.
I was just gonna ask, but I guess you said it. You're gonna be in Abu Dhabi, right?
Yes, I'm going to be in Abu Dhabi, and then obviously our postseason testing takes place the week after the race, so I will be staying for another week
So
after the
you
race.
mentioned like obviously you don't get to drive the current year's car during the season because they need it for races and stuff. But what do you think about the idea of post Abu Dhabi, all test and development drivers race in Abu Dhabi
With the current spec car?
with the current spec car? Yeah, the F1 drivers get out at the podium ceremony, whatever. Immediate second race with the test and development drivers, current cars.
I think we need to propose that idea to Bernie.
Let's call him up after the show.
Yeah, someone's number.
Where do I?
Just send the idea over. I'm all.
That'll be the dream, man. That's why you guys like start even to get into this path, this crazy path that it obviously takes a certain amount of a huge amount of
life
dedication,
commitment,
a huge amount of we honestly every time that we interview a driver, it's just astonishing to see like the commitment that you guys have, and obviously you have to have it these days. But there's, as far as I can tell, in terms of having like a normal life, you guys don't have much time for that. And just like you said, that you come to Toronto, you just try to do normal people stuff because your life outside of it is just so the opposite of that, which is great. I guess another thing is so after this year's done, you're looking to go back to GP2. Keep I guess working on some skills, and then hopefully look forward to a future in F1. By then, I'm sure Renault would have, if anything, like, you know, especially with the fact that we're not going to have any more tokens next year, everybody's expecting to see a very competitive Renault. The seats that do become available, when they become available, are going to be highly contested. So what would you have to say to a guy like Freddy Vasseur? He's thinking of looking to pick up some new drivers coming up, in a couple of years' time. He knows you, but there's other people knocking on his door. What would you say to making sure that you're the guy that makes it to F1 instead of somebody else?
Honestly, a lot of what's going to determine my future, and okay, so like you said, first of all, I will be doing another year of GP2, most likely staying with the same team. But a lot of what's going to determine my future after that, especially my future in F1, hopefully if I have one, is going to be my results next year. So let's say the talking I would do to Mr. Vasseur would be, the best talking would be to get the results on the track, because that's what they're going to be looking at. He's told me that's what they're going to be looking at, and it's most of the time the same with any Formula One team, not just with Renault, with Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes. You got to get the results on track. So next year is going to be my second full year in the championship. Obviously, have much higher expectations than this year, and always the second year around. You see drivers always have much stronger years, especially in a championship like GP2. So yeah, obviously there's a bit of musical chairs, let's say, in the Formula One world right now, which I think is good. It's nice to see change. It's nice to see drivers going to different teams, current drivers going to different teams, new drivers entering Formula One, which is nice. Keep things fresh, and not obviously the top teams will always most of the time sign their drivers for like long-term contracts, 3-year deals. So I think that's good for the excitement of Formula One, and also for junior drivers like myself trying to get into the sport, because it gives you, let's say, it creates opportunities if there's always drivers getting signed to 1-year contracts, and it really puts the pressure on everyone to try and be at their best and perform at their best, whether you're in GP2, any other category, or in Formula One, because your seat can always constantly be at risk, because there's always going to be somebody coming through that's going to be working just as hard, if not harder, to try and kick you out of your seat and then show them what they're capable of.
Yeah. Jesus.
That's what silly season is all about.
What do you got?
So I guess we saw you with Tim Mulroney last week.
Oh, yeah.
Doing a little
A couple weeks back.
2 weeks back, I guess, doing a little drive around interview. And it looks like Infinity is giving you the keys to one of those.
So they gave me,
how it
at
is.
the end of that day, they gave me the keys to the blue Q50 Red Sport 400.
The
So I've been
Sport
enjoying my
400.
time driving so far because I actually didn't have a car here before then. So
Did they give you that for F1 practice? It looks like it basically has the Renault F1 tech almost built in.
yeah, it's actually surprisingly it's a very nice car to drive. Surprisingly very fast, honestly. It has a twin turbo, 400 horsepower, and I was really surprised at how fast. Like once the turbo kicks in, it's really, really powerful, which is quite nice. And the technology in the car is also, I like that kind of stuff. I like the high tech kind of gadgets in the car, so I'm more for that. But the main thing is I'm not carless anymore, which is great.
No more TTC.
No more.
It looks like almost like one step away from a concept car. But I was looking at like the Infinity videos yesterday. They're doing some testing and stuff at the Nordschleife at the Green Hell. Have you ever gotten to drive there?
No, so I've never driven the Nordschleife. I've driven in Nürburgring, so the Formula One track, but never around like the full Nordschleife. That's something definitely I want to do. But before I do that, I would kind of want to have the track memorized because it can become a bit sketchy going around there.
That's what Gran Turismo's for. It's amazing.
Cool. All right, man. Yeah, I think we've successfully wasted enough of your time already. We gotta let you go, but before we let you go, thank you again so much for giving us the opportunity to talk. Maybe we can say that we'll catch up with you sometime in the future.
For sure, yeah, it was my pleasure. I enjoyed talking to you guys.
How about we say and just to put a little bit of pressure now, we got Lance Stroll to agree to this as well. How about we say we'll see you in Montreal next year for a couple beers? How's that?
Sounds good.
1 or 2 beers?
If I can make it out to Montreal, I'd love to be there.
All right, man. Thanks so much.
Thanks
a huge pleasure again for everybody. This is Nicholas Latifi, driving for DAMS GP2 and Renault F1 test driver, and proud Canadian and all around great guy.
Nicky Latz.
Thanks so much, man.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
See ya. Thank you.
Good luck. Cheers. Have a good afternoon. Cool. I guess we're gonna take a quick 3-4 minute break here. I'm about to pee my pants.
Yeah.
And we'll come back with the Austin race review, the Mexican race preview.
And we're gonna chug some Bone Shaker. Well, we're not gonna chug him. We're just gonna drink him.
Regular news and
some downforce.
Downforce.
Get some
That's why
downforce.
you got that.
Downforce power.
Okay. Some downforce. All right, guys. Yeah, we'll be back in a few minutes.